All right, folks. Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Bibbs Corner podcast. This is episode 26. As always, I'm your host, Mike Bibbins. I had no plans on doing this, so I hope you guys will go with me here for a second. I sat down to take my notes for the podcast, and I still had TNT on in the background. And Doc Rivers came on for his post-game press conference, and I decided to listen to it. And about halfway through the questions, he just kind of started talking about the things that are going on with the latest shooting of an unarmed American citizen on camera, and how it affected him, how it affected his players, and TNT then showed like clips of other players reacting and talking about their feelings about different things that are happening. I think the Raptors and Bucks players have all talked about wanting to do different things. I think the Celtics have as well. But after listening to, everybody talk about what's going on, I completely forgot about the game, quite honestly. And just listening to some of the players talk about how difficult it is being in the bubble and just the idea of the bubble itself. They're safe. They're away from the world, safe from corona, but also safe from having to potentially be profiled. They're away from what's happening in the world. I'm sure there's a sense of guilt for that. And for any of the guys with kids, I can only imagine what it's like being away from your families when you lay down in your bed at night and think about the realities of what's going on outside the bubble. Jaylen Brown mentioned looking down at his jersey in the number 7 and thinking about Jacob Blake, the guy in Wisconsin that was shot in the back 7 times. Just thinking about that, just the number 7 and the fact that man was shot 7 times. And I know somebody listening to this probably already cut it off. If you're still listening, you may be rolling your eyes and thinking that, sports is supposed to be my escape. I don't want to hear this crap. Maybe even listening to this podcast, you're thinking, I came here to listen to something about basketball. I'm not here to listen to this. And I'm sure there are other people, these NBA players make millions of dollars. They don't have anything to complain about, blah, blah, blah. All the little talking points that you see all over Twitter and whatnot. Facebook especially is worst. But at the end of the day, none of us can escape our skin as black men in America. We literally just watched Masai Ujiri deal with a 14-month investigation into an incident where he was assaulted by a cop in the arena after the Raptors won the championship. 14 months it took, 30,000 witnesses in the arena, on TV, what had to be hundreds of different cameras and videos being taken at the time. And it took 14 months for the video that was on the cop's chest to come out and prove beyond a reasonable doubt, even though nobody doubted Masai's side of the story. But it took 14 months for that video to come out to show that the cop pushed him for no reason, pushed him while he's pulling his credential out of his suit jacket, and then pushed him twice. Like, first time, maybe you didn't know somebody came up on you, you reacted. But to push him twice after you see he has a lanyard of some sort in his hands, you see that he's confused by how you're reacting. But that's the president, I guess, of the Raptors? A very important figure on a professional basketball team. And okay, maybe he's not a player, but, and if somebody doesn't know who you are doesn't matter if they don't give you a chance to tell who you are. John Henson a few years ago had the cops called on him for literally just walking into a jewelry store in Milwaukee. And it's funny that these things are happening in Wisconsin. There was another player, Sterling Brown, on the Bucks, who was profiled, beaten, arrested, and tased. He literally was in court over this last December. Like, this, being an NBA player does not make you immune to these things. So for anybody out there that thinks that, just cancel that thought. That's not how this works at all. After the first thing they see is your appearance, your physical appearance. They react to that. If they recognize who you are, maybe the altercation goes a different way. But if they don't, it can go very badly, as we've seen over and over and over again. And anybody questioning it at this point just doesn't want to see it, doesn't want to understand. Again, I didn't have any intention to talk about this. I'm sure somebody's checked out by now at least, and if I lose listeners, that's fine. I have a little bit of a platform here, and I have to speak from my heart because you can call me a lot of different things as long as one of them is authentic. So I have to be true to who I am and what I'm about. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Doc got me in my thoughts, and I'll try to get back to basketball here in a second. And anybody that listened through this whole thing, I appreciate you, and we'll get back to basketball in just a second. Okay, so basketball. A few things happened before the game tipped off. We found out early in the day that KP was out. We heard that DFS was questionable with different injuries to each hip, which is exciting. And then we found out our old buddy Kane Fitzgerald was back for tonight's game. If you weren't aware, Kane Fitzgerald was the ref for game 1 when Luka got ejected. So, oh joy, glad to have him back, right? He was unloading the tech again tonight. Tonight it was Rick that got tossed. I think there were at least 6 techs tonight. I think there were 4 in the first game. So he's one of the ones that has succumbed to the bubble situation and letting everything he hears affect him, being overly sensitive to everything. And again, this is one of the things that I and other people, I don't want to name names, but I've seen other people mention it, that this was going to be a potential issue that would affect the playoffs, is just the fact that the refs can literally hear everything. Things that would usually go under the radar or be missed in some way, shape, or form are suddenly not going to be missed. And that's problematic, to say the least. I'm not going to be one of those people to put this game completely on the refs. That would be a lie. I'd be lying to myself to say this was completely going to be the refs. When I first heard the news that KP was out, my entire mood for this game was dampened. I felt like it worked out last time because the Clippers didn't really have time to prepare for the idea of Porzingis not playing. And even then, they did jump out to a huge lead on us, but they, again, hadn't mentally prepared for KP to be out and just accepted that we were losing because of that, and that allowed us to creep back in because they couldn't match our intensity at a certain point. Throughout the first 4 games of the series, I felt like the Clippers had been overthinking it. I felt like they should have been killing us by getting inside all series. PG is taller than anybody that's going to guard him, or stronger than anybody that's going to guard him. Kawhi, even though he's physically outmatched by Max, he is still strong enough to get his little elbow into Maxey's chest and push him off enough to get his mid-range off, right? They're not going to call that unless I guess he punches Maxey in the face, perhaps. But yeah, they have a size advantage for most of the game, except when Boban is in. Size and or physicality, I should say. And they hadn't taken advantage of it as much as they should. They did tonight early. It opened things up. It got them to the free throw line early. And we came out strong too. The first 6 minutes of the game, we were trading blows, going back and forth. It looked like we were going to have a nice fun game. And then Kane in the game came through and started calling things unevenly, changed the momentum. It got into our heads a little bit. I think Luka was starting to feel his ankle already early in the game. And, when you're dealing with pain and you're trying to play through it, you have some calls go against you that you didn't expect, or you don't get calls that you expected to get. And now those two things coming together takes you out of your game. Took us out of our rhythm. Before we knew it, we were down 16, 15, whatever the case was. And, we went on little runs here and there throughout the rest of the game, but it was never enough. They took us out of it mentally, and the Clippers did the rest, basically. So, again, I'm not going to say the refs completely took this game from us, but they definitely changed the momentum, and we never recovered after that. Same thing that happened to the Blazers the other night. Again, both teams are the underdog, but it's like when you know you're the underdog, you need mentally to feel like you have a chance, because there's nothing else working against you besides the obvious basketball factors. So when those other factors start working against you, it's hard to stay mentally locked in and focused on the idea of being able to pull off this upset. And then, playoff P showed up. And apparently it was a huge deal for him psychologically. He was very candid, actually, about being in a dark place before tonight's game, and thank the people that reached out to him with advice and to say kind things. And at the end of the day, he's a human too. He actually almost made me feel sorry for him, but clearly he was dealing with some stuff, even if whether it was missing his family, which I'm sure was a factor, having to deal with the whole Seth thing and not being able to look at or hold his wife right now to get past thinking about his past. I don't know how he felt about what happened. It feels like there's still some feelings there of having messed up with Callie. And so that whole dynamic is interesting with him. But I mean, he got his shot off tonight. He was looking very cocky. But it started after the game. After he talked, they realized that I don't know. He's got a lot going on upstairs. As far as his psychology in basketball, he seems like he's the complete opposite of Kawhi in that regard. So a person whose emotions will affect the game, and that's going to be something that's interesting to watch the rest of the way. I'm sure Kawhi did not mind him showing up tonight, tired of doing everything. Kawhi, ho-hum, another 32-point game, made it look like nothing. Besides the pushing off to get there, but that is what it is. Overall, the Clippers did what they were supposed to do, just being physical, using their size against us and making us look small. We don't have a chance the rest of the way without KP. So I guess that's the next thing we'll wait for, is to see what the word is on his situation and if he's going to be back for Game 6. My guy Maxey did hit 2 threes tonight. I finally put the call out. I was very brave and said that I would bet a few people $3 that Maxey would hit 3 threes tonight. And if he hit less than 3, then, that would take off however many he hit. So he hit 2. I owe a couple people $1. I'll hit him up tomorrow to get that taken care of. If he had come back later in the game, of course, he would have hit that third one, but I'm not going to go out on the qualifier. I'll stick to my word on that. And that's really, I don't want to spend a lot of more time talking about this game, so I'll cut this off here and we'll get into the stats. All right, folks, welcome back. Again, this is episode 26 of the Bibbs Corner Podcast. I am your host, as always, Mike Bibbins. We're going to get into these stats. I do not plan on this being a long segment either. Nothing exciting to talk about. Luka, let's get off the bat with him. He played 31 minutes tonight. 22 points, 8 boards, 4 assists. He was 6 for 17 from the field. 9 for 14 from the line, 1 for 6 from 3, with 5 turnovers. I think in the second quarter or so, he started really limping bad. He was wincing whenever he stepped on that foot. You have to hope that his ankle isn't getting worse from the usage from the other night and now tonight. Kind of sucks that he still played 31 minutes despite the calling the game basically halfway through the third quarter. The moment that I think people are going to look at if he is worse off with his ankle is when Morris stepped on his foot. And again, this was after he had already started limping. Morris put out a statement on Twitter saying that it wasn't intentional, blah, 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 blah. I do think the league should be looking at all the angles of that video to make sure he had not looked down before he took that step, because it looked like a really long, unnecessary step to me from the angle I saw. And I'm not trying to, I don't want to think that he did that, but it just very coincidental that he steps on Luka's injured ankle, like literally on the injured ankle. Like not just stepped on his foot, but stepped on it in that exact spot. It just felt weird. But again, I hope the league is looking at the video, figuring out if there appeared to be some intent, and addresses it accordingly. Moving forward, THJ had a THJ game, 19 points, 1 board, 3 assists, 7 for 14 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. Under normal circumstances, that would be a great THJ line. Tonight was not a normal circumstances type situation, though. Who else we got? DFS had a DFS game as well. Sort of, I guess. 9.6 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals. He was 3 for 6, and all of his shots were threes. I think that may have been a byproduct of his hip situation, not being inside to do a lot of damage. I have dealt with hip issues, and I usually play with reckless abandon myself, but when it's both his hips like that, I can imagine he didn't want anything to do with the interior tonight, and that's understandable. He played 26 minutes as well. I just realized I skipped a person on my note sheet, but I'll worry about that while I'm doing this. Maxey, 12 points, 4 boards, an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks. And, I was hoping he would step up in this game to kind of fill the void of KP. And he hit a couple threes tonight, like I said. Obviously, that's what you like to see from him, but obviously, it wasn't enough. I'm glad that he got to see the ball go through the hoop, though, because again, I mean, this thing isn't over. I saw a lot of doom and gloom type talk, but if KP comes back again, it changes the whole series. We still have not had a game with both Luka and KP from start to finish. That has yet to occur. So again, he sat out 2 games now. Maybe that means he's had enough time to rest and his knee's going to be okay. It's kind of weird that it's still just being listed as soreness. That doesn't make me feel good at all. So again, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to have any feelings about where he is until they say something. Again, Maxey was 2 for 4 from 3. It was good to see it go in. I noticed on the ones he missed, he wasn't set really. And I don't know if he's rushing or what the case is, but I hope that, again, just seeing a couple go in, he's able to settle down a little bit and be a positive contributor in this next game. And then finally, the last starter, Trey Burke, he had 15 points, 1 board, 2 assists, and a steal. And really, I love his energy and approach. We've been over this. We talked about the fact that he's very likely to be back next year. But again, he just plays like he belongs. Like, he doesn't play like a guy who is just happy to be there. He plays like, this is my squad. I'm gonna go out here, do what I can for my squad. I think he has a positive impact on Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. And a thought hit me earlier today, actually. I don't know if this is going to be a good thing for the people that are trying to make a big trade this offseason, but I could see a Dwight Powell type scenario for Tim Hardaway Jr. where he does not opt into that gigantic contract and instead opts for a long-term contract with much less money up front while we're doing the Burke deal, so they can be kind of a package deal going forward. And if we somehow are able to swing something somewhere else down the line, maybe we just have to be more patient to bring another guy in, or maybe we can get a young, cheap guy. That would be a heck of a dynamic guard rotation to have Burke, Seth, THJ, as potentially even a bench unit, depending on what we do this offseason. So again, I'm getting way ahead of myself. I do not like talking about the offseason. I got to address that later with the questions that came in, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Moving to the bench, Seth was buns tonight. He was tentative, like he is sometimes. I think for me, it bothers me that it feels like Seth doesn't want to shoot unless Seth can get to a comfortable spot. Like, it has to be, he can't be taking a risk of getting blocked. He can't be uncomfortable. Like, his feet have to be set. He has to be squared up. I don't like that he doesn't shoot. He doesn't force his shot. It's weird to say that, but if you're a shooter, if you're a bucket getter, you should be able to have multiple release points, multiple angles you can get your shot off at and be effective. That's what Steph does. And maybe that's why Steph is Steph and Seth is Seth. But no, he had 4 points, 2 boards, 2 for 6 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, blah, blah, blah. Don't really want to go into that too much. MKG played 14 minutes. He was 0 for 4 from 3. They kept leaving him open, obviously on purpose. He drove for a bucket, ended up being 1 for 6 from the field overall. 3 points, an assist, a steal, and a block for him tonight. Again, he's one of those guys that, he's there to defend. And for the most part, he did what he was supposed to do. And it just didn't really matter tonight. Boban played 17 minutes, 5 points, 3 boards, an assist, and a block. His assist was beautiful. I think he went around the back and then dimed it over the top to Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. My thing that bothers me about Boban is just how soft he is. I hate to say that, but when you're that big, and I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but it feels like Boban plays like he doesn't want to hurt people. Like, he plays like a guy my dad was a boxer when he was in the military, and he talked about one time when he was fighting a guy and I guess punched him so hard the guy came off his feet and had a seizure. And he couldn't box again after that. Boban plays like a guy who has hurt somebody by accident in the past and doesn't want to do it again. Like, he doesn't commit to going after a block hard. He doesn't commit to letting somebody run into him hard and potentially not want to come back in there type of thing. I wish he was more willing to use his body in that way. I know it sounds bad, but I mean, that's an asset. Like, if you have a guy who's willing to set a hard screen or to come into a guy who keeps driving the lane, and just basically all he has to do is take a step forward and let Lou Williams fly into him. He might get a foul call, but they can't say it's flagrant or anything. But it's going to hurt him. And maybe next time he thinks twice about coming in there. Again, it sounds bad, but that's like, I hate watching a little guy come right past Boban and lay the ball up. Like, come on, man. You got to give me something. So, and I hate how he reaches down for blocks. Like, he should be getting it at the high point. Anyway, DeLon actually looked good tonight. 11 points, assist. 11 points aboard, 2 assists, 2 steals. He was aggressive. 5 for 7 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, but he was aggressive, active. I think he feels the pressure. I think he knows that his days are probably numbered. So I did appreciate him being a bit more aggressive tonight when he got his moments. I don't know if it means anything for him with his future for the Mavs or for the series, but it was good to see. And then finally, Justin Jackson, Antonius Cleveland, and Josh Reeves all got to play, and they all scored points. I don't care to talk about what happened with them, so we're just going to move forward. I usually don't talk about the other team stats, but Kawhi and PG had very similar lines. I think Kawhi was 12 for 19 from the field. PG was 12 for 18. Harrell got loose for 19 points and 11 boards. The Kawhi did what Kawhi has been doing all series, but the Clippers clearly once they got up by 30, they used this game to tune up some of the guys that have been rusty in this series, including George and Harrell, to kind of get them going and get them feeling good about themselves, which obviously wasn't exciting to watch, and it's not exciting to consider going into Game 6. But again, nothing really. I'm not going to let anything affect me until I know what KP's situation is. If KP plays, then I'll get back excited again about our chances. If he doesn't, then we'll see if Luka's going to come out and be a hero again. So next game is Game 6. Thursday, Luka's going to be facing NBA playoff elimination for the first time in his young career. Unfortunately, not 100% healthy. We'll see what happens with him and his ankle also. But I'm looking forward to seeing how the guys come up, how they show up, how they fight, what adjustments are made. And as I've said about 100 times on this podcast, we will see if KP comes back. Again, that's going to be another tough conversation depending on what happens with KP. Again, none of us are doctors, but if he doesn't play in Game 6, that's going to be a fun conversation. That's all I'll say about that right now. There were a good bit of questions, so I'll go ahead and close this section of the pod off, and we'll get to those. All right, folks, welcome back. We got, like I said, a good bit of questions tonight, so let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to address, I keep getting a lot of questions about off-season moves and things like that, and I'm just going to be honest and upfront. I'm really not thinking about the off-season right now. We are in the playoffs. We still got a chance here, so until we are eliminated and I've had some time to deal with that, cope with that, recover from that, I'm not looking at who's going to be a free agent or anything like that. So I'm just going to skip those questions. Mavs film room sent the question, just simply asked why, and life isn't fair. So that's the best answer I got for that. And MFFL 7741 is back. He asked, should Morris be suspended and for how many years? Again, I mentioned this earlier in the pod, actually. If they can review that tape and see that he looked down before he stepped on Luka's foot, then he should be suspended for at least a game. If they can't determine that he looked down before taking that step, then it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but again, if you can't prove intent, it's hard to suspend somebody. Things happen. Next, Luka _land asked, why is MKG shooting twice as many threes as Seth in back-to-back games? So last game it was fine with Seth not shooting because he was being chased off the line, but didn't let it affect his rhythm. Got inside, hit mid-range jumpers, got to the basket, things like that. Tonight it did affect him, and probably because he was wanting to press or wanting to get his threes off. And so them closing out to his threes threw off his rhythm, and for whatever reason, he's unable to recover. Hopefully he can put it together for the next game because, again, we need all hands on deck, even if KP is back. So, MKG, obviously they're leaving him wide open and daring him to shoot, so he feels it necessary to go ahead and pull those, and it is what it is. Next question comes from tweets from Teep. And she asked, should I watch Game 6 or stick with my Star Trek marathon because Star Trek brings me joy? It's hard. I can't tell anybody ever to not watch a game. I don't have it in me. If KP sits, I would say cue up the Star Trek by halftime, depending on how you're feeling. Maybe put the game on mute at that point and let the Star Trek take over. But keep the game on just in case some magic happens, no matter what. Yeah, I can't tell you not to watch it. Race the Face asked, does the game 1 KP ejection seem like a bigger deal now that the series is 3-2? I can't say that. I can't say that one thing could change the series. Well, I kind of could, but nothing outside of our control. The main thing for me is KP's health. We're 1-1 without him now, and without him completely, I should say. And the series was right there for us. If we're at full strength, we showed we can hang with these people, and right now we're just too depleted to do so, too beaten down, too injured, to beat them. I don't think we can beat them without KP at this point. I mean, obviously I thought that before, but we stole one. I thought, hey, we stole it. KP will be back, and now we can really do some damage. But he wasn't back. We got blown out. And if he's not back in Game 6, it's hard for me to envision a victory coming, especially with Luka dealing with his injury. Coming into the... Well, I think let's move to the next question, actually. I think they kind of... Let me see here. Okay, no, we'll address that later. No. So coming into the series, one of the things that we talked about was the idea that the Clippers would be very physical with us and would beat us up. And I do think that this experience is kind of necessary for Luka and KP going forward, to face some of that playoff disappointment with the refs and things like that. That's fine. I think that them both being hurt kind of gives them in their heads maybe an excuse as to, why they don't necessarily have to feel like they let anybody down with their game, at least. So, as far as learning experiences go, I think this regardless of what happens going forward, I'm happy with the experience that they've had between the chippiness and the great game with the walk-off buzzer beater to tonight getting blown out by 40. So, or was it 50? I don't even know. We got destroyed. But all of these things matter. Getting that first playoff W mattered. The text matter. Like, all of it matters. It's all a positive thing. So I wanted one game. Hope for 2. We got 2. No matter what happens going forward, I'm pleased with our time here. Next question comes from Nick Lucas 2122. He said to address whether the Mavs should move forward with the expectation that KP will miss games consistently. And initially when I read the question, I thought he meant in the postseason, but I think he means period in general, like the next several years. So yeah, he actually says that. I don't really see this issue going away, and I'm dreading when we sit here 4 or 5 years from now saying, well, you don't want to risk KP's knee. So that's the talk that I saw tonight that annoyed me a bit. Is, we got to think about the future, this, that, and the third. The future's not promised, in my opinion. You're 2-2 in the series. You have a chance to win. And if you're just sitting KP out for preventative reasons, not because there's an actual injury there, it's hard for me to accept that in the playoffs. Do it in the regular season, whatever. But in the playoffs, you're in it. You should be in it to win it. Again, I've seen people compare it to the Dirk situation back in 2003. From what we're being told, there's no real injury there. It's soreness or tightness or something. It's not an actual injury. So unless they want to come out and tell us there's a real injury there, it's hard for me to accept that as a comparison. I don't want to think that we came into these playoffs thinking that we weren't going to go for it. Especially, when you tie a series 2-2 and it's right there for you. With that said, as far as going forward, I kind of said this last year when I was saying I wanted Vucevic when we had money. Just the idea of adding another big man with a slightly different skill set than KP, but somebody else who could score 30 on a given night beside Luka, if KP is potentially going to be out. Now, I said that with the idea of KP being legitimately injured again and unable to play, because obviously that's something we have to consider on a daily basis. And I apologize for all the sniffing and stuff if that's annoying. My sinuses are kind of being weird right now. But yeah, I was very much on board with the idea of bringing in another big man that can be somewhat complementary to KP so that they could at least play together a little bit, but also so we could stagger them, and then also so if KP went down, we would have somebody else there that could complement Luka with a 30-piece on any given night. So I'm still very much in that camp. I think that these playoffs have just proven that how important that is to add some legit depth at the 5/4 position. So yeah, I'm even stronger on that now, especially given the fact that this isn't even a real injury, but we're sitting them out in the playoffs. So, I'm sorry, it isn't a real injury as far as we know, and they're sitting them out in the playoffs. Not a good feeling at all. And then it kind of leaves Luka out there. I don't want to say defend for himself, but basically defend for himself and with the supporting cast. So next question comes from Billings_Evan. He asked, in the scope of the season, how do you feel about this playoff series as a whole so far? It seems hard to say it's anything other than a success, right? I guess I kind of already answered that question. But yeah, it's a success. I think a lot of fans are going to, in their heads, be able to say that we didn't really lose this series, that it was taken from us, that we never had a single game with Luka and KP potentially together for the full game, between the KP ejection in Game 1, Luka's foul trouble Game 2, Luka's ankle injury Game 3, no KP Game 4 and 5, and then whatever happens in Game 6, we'll see. But just feeling like we didn't have our complete complement of players, knowing that Dwight Powell and Jalen Brunson are out, Courtney Lee, whatever he would have potentially contributed, Willie Cauley-Stein outside the bubble. So I feel like a lot of people are going to feel hopeful and think that, we didn't put our best foot forward, and we still stole 2, potentially 3 games from the Clippers. Potentially, hey, we could end up winning the series. But if we do end up losing, I don't think there's anything really negative to take away from this experience. The goal for the season was to make the playoffs for most people, and we did that. We won a game or 2 against one of the best teams in the league. So I don't see how you can call that anything but a success. And then finally, I think this is the last question. Let me double check. No, holy crap. There's a few. All right, so Campaign with a K. It's spelled like champagne, Poppy. Thoughts on Game 6 if KP plays and Morris is suspended. So if KP plays and Morris is suspended, even if Morris isn't suspended, if KP plays, I expect a shootout. I expect it to go down to the wire. It's going to be a game in the 130s, going back and forth, a lot of bangs, a lot of excitement, a lot of yelling from both teams and benches. And it'll come down to, who can close the game. So, should be exciting. Definitely waiting on that injury report. Next question comes from, I don't even know how to say this, CETRIELD, Cetrield or something like that. Anyway, what should be the tipping point with respect to an injury when deciding to sit out / play through the pain? That's a tough one. Myself, never having played on such a big scale or with such big stakes, my little experience isn't really anything to go off of. I have a hard time with this KP situation because I don't know how much say he actually has in his situation. Same thing with Luka. I don't know how much say they really have over their situations. If it's just pain, it's hard to imagine not going out there and playing. If it starts to affect your game dramatically to the point where just getting up and down the court is a problem, then obviously it's not worth it. If you're potentially hurting your team by not being able to move on defense or whatever the case may be, like Luka in Game 3, obviously you should sit. But I think most pro athletes are dealing with at least a little bit of pain every night for the most part. Playing that many games back and forth, going against other large men every night, I think that it's hard to just be out with some discomfort, basically. The fact that he's been out, KP, I'm assuming that's what you're alluding to. The fact that KP's been out 2 games, I almost want to hear that it's something more serious than just some soreness or pain or whatever. And then finally, last question. Again, a lot of these are related. Trevor_Rathbun. Long-term concern for KP knees and how it plays into the third guy. Again, we've kind of already addressed this. I am very strongly in the camp of wanting another big man who can score 30 points. How we get that, neither here nor there. I'm very strongly in that camp of thinking that I want that player there. I also wanted a Tobias Harris type guy, so either one of those could really work for me, honestly. If you do the big wing, like a Tobias Harris or Otto Porter, for example, if you do that big wing, then I want us to have multiple just kind of reserve bigs that we can kind of use those 2 players as a combination type thing where one's the scorer, one's the defender, like Willie Cauley-Stein or, guys like that, to be able to throw multiple of those bodies out there to defend the paint, rebound, things like that, or catch lobs. I think that we cannot apparently expect to do the things that we want to do with just Luka and KP being guys that can go off for 30 every night. We need a third guy that can do that at the very least. And I wouldn't even consider it a super team type situation in that regard because it's really just an insurance policy. So like I said, there were a lot of questions. I'm glad that you guys sent them. A lot of talk around KP on this pod tonight. I don't even know how long this ends up being, probably around my 40 or so minutes that I've been doing lately. Thank you again for tuning in. Again, my sinuses have kind of been affecting me, so I don't probably feel as great as I would like to feel. I wish I was being able to be happier on this podcast, but a lot of things going on in this world right now, a lot of bad emotions tied to this game right now. So next game could be the last. We're facing elimination, so that's interesting. It's not sure where this podcast is going to go from there. I kind of have an idea. I want to do like a weekly thing as far as basketball, kind of like the movie thing, but we'll see. I also want to have some guests on. I've had some people reach out. I do want to make those things happen, so it's going to be interesting going forward. I don't want to get ahead of myself again and start talking about after the Mavs, but I will tell you how I feel based on whatever happens with this KP situation. If he's playing, then we're going for the gold. If he's not, then we're just waiting to see when it happens. That's my honest opinion. I have started the rambling section of the podcast where I could have ended it a minute ago, but I've continued to talk. So let me shut this off and get my behind in bed. It is 2:08 a.m. here on the East Coast as I'm shutting this off. So thanks again for listening, people. I appreciate every single play. I've hit another milestone on the last pod. Most listens by far. And I don't know, you guys make me feel good every time you hit play. So thank you. Peace. I'm going to shut up now.